Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Jay Center podcast presented by the Sick Podcast Network. With the All-Star break coming to a close, the focus shifts to the trade deadline. Don't go anywhere.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Cole Weston and Rob Pentalman here with you today. Unfortunately, no James Price, but that's okay. There's no better way to start off the second half than by getting to talk about a first-place team heading into the trade deadline, which is what we get to do this year in 2025. The Jays sit 2 games up ahead of anybody else in the AL East for the division lead, and the Jays are 100% going to be buyers. Reports coming out as late as today from quotes apparently from Ross Atkins saying, we're going to move guys. Prospects are going to be moved. This is our year kind of thing. So Jays fans can't be more excited, and I can't wait to get into it, Rob.
Absolutely. I will correct you a little bit off the top there. I don't think Ross Atkins said that directly. I think that was Jim Bowden's quote that they're going to be moving prospects. So I don't think he was a direct quote from Ross. But regardless, pretty prestigious guy Jim Bowden is within the baseball stratosphere, and he thinks the Jays are going to be making moves. So that's obviously very exciting. I mean, we'll talk about that a lot on this episode. But first of all, I want to ask you how you've been doing, how you've been handling this little All-Star break. Because the thing is, like, everyone talks about, the players and the coaches having their All-Star break, but us, the crazy fans who watch every single game, we've had a nice little break here too. How have you enjoyed this little time off?
It's been good. I mean, I always get to appreciate when, you get to come home after work one day and you don't have to, have 3 hours of your night dedicated to a Blue Jays game, even if they're, sitting atop the division. It's nice every once in a while, and even the players would agree. There's not enough off days throughout the 162 game regular season, and I think us media members would, say the same thing. There's not enough off days. I'm pretty sure there's like 16 or 18 off days for a 162 game season, and I don't know if that includes the All-Star break.
Well, here's the thing. Like, obviously, we had a little bit of a break, but when you think about it, it's not really as much of a break as you think. It's really just Wednesday and Thursday, right? Because obviously you have the Derby on Monday. You have the All-Star game, which should be a nice segue to our first topic of the day. The All-Star game was on Tuesday, which was awesome. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. I'll start off briefly, though. Derby, I'm usually a big Derby guy. Didn't quite get to do it this year. Didn't quite get to watch it. I was out on Monday, which obviously, like as much as I love the Derby, I do think, like you mentioned, watching 3 hours of baseball every night for the last 3 months, like, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll take the Derby off and go out. That works out well. But the All-Star game was awesome. I thought that it was just an absolute amazing showcase of the sport. It was a close game, which obviously always helps. And I think that if it wasn't clear already, it's got to be clear now that the MLB All-Star game is clearly superior of all the 4 major North American sports teams. I mean, I don't dabble too much into the NHL All-Star game, but the NFL, obviously the Pro Bowl and the NBA, it's obviously kind of low-key a bit of an embarrassment what's happened the last few years or so. But that doesn't change the fact that the MLB All-Star game, specifically this one on Tuesday, was awesome. You had the ABS come in. I thought that worked tremendous. You had the swing up at the end, which was suspenseful and fun to watch. I want to get your thoughts before we go into the specifics of it. How did you find that Tuesday night in Atlanta, the All-Star game?
MLB is clearly the best All-Star game, and I don't think it's particularly close. And for everybody who wants to include the 4 nations, it's not the same thing. It's literally a tournament with the country's best on best. That is not the same thing as an All-Star game. So the NHL's, unfortunately, this year doesn't count.
Right, you're right. Yeah. I forgot. Yeah, because the 4 nations is now is the new All-Star format? Because that was pretty cool too. But is that how it's going to go from now on? I'm not entirely sure.
That has not been confirmed. They might try it more often than once every blue moon, but it's not confirmed if it's going to be every year. But even if it is every year, that's not an All-Star game. That's just traditionally that's a tournament. That is a best on best, country versus country tournament. That doesn't count.
Correct.
So yes, easily the best All-Star game. I'm a big MLB All-Star guy, always have been, so I was tuned in for the Derby, even though I was hanging out with my girlfriend at McDonald's. I was like, we have to turn the Derby on. And for all the people that get upset that Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani and Kyle Schwarber and all these guys aren't in the Derby every year, I get it. obviously it would be sick to watch Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani go at it in Derby. But here's the thing. Most of these guys have already done the Derby, if not won the Derby before.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Replacing those guys in today's economy is so easy. When you have guys like O'Neal Cruz and James Wood and Byron Buxton, like all these guys that typically wouldn't be in the Derby if you just went top 8 home run hitters at the All-Star break, these guys can mash and it's still fun to watch. I also want to talk about the people that, care about the 10 out format that it used to be, where it was just 10 swings, 10 outs. You go from there and, suspense. I get it. I also don't mind the argument, but like, you show up to a home run derby, you want to see home runs. This format gives you a ton of them. So it's like, I think that no matter what the derby delivers, I don't particularly care who's in it, as long as you kind of avoid the Jazz Chisholms of the world. Obviously, that was a failed experiment. But yeah, the MLB All-Star Game, forgot that the swing-off was even a rule when we went to extra innings. And then, of course, picking 3 guys from each team to have their own home run derby at the end of the All-Star Game is just an insane thought to think about. So it obviously lived up to the hype. So yeah, I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
My biggest takeaway, and I say this as a fan of other sports, is that it is refreshing to see just like the light that baseball is covered in, and that this stuff like has to matter. It's fun. You look at the NBA, and it's like nothing matters. You could score 50 points a game in the regular season, like James Harden did in that year, and it doesn't matter because what did you do in the playoffs? Did you win a ring? Joel Embiid wins MVP. No one cares. Until Giannis won his first title, no one cared, right? Like that's just how it is. Like we have basically made the NBA into a binary event of did you win or did you not win? And a season that starts in October and ends in June. Like basically nothing matters until June. So that I thought that's really poor coverage by them on their part. NFL is not quite the same. It's sort of similar. There's a big toxic ring culture element too. But what I like about baseball is that it's fun to watch an all-star game where the best like perform and have fun, and the home run derby, winning the home run derby matters. And even like look at Shohei Ohtani, like we all consider him the best player in the world, but we considered him the best player in the world well before he was a Dodger and won a World Series and all that, right? Like it's because it doesn't have to be just the rings and like the titles and all that. I think it's refreshing to see that from baseball, but the specifics of the game itself, obviously we saw the ABS. You and I are kind of familiar with the ABS system being down in Buffalo. And, that's been a thing in the minors for a couple of years now, at least a couple of years is what I think. But I thought personally it worked perfectly, like as ideal of a situation as it could have been. You have a guy who challenges it. If it touches the zone, it's a strike. And that's end of discussion. You don't have Lou Piniella throwing stuff around. You don't have any managers arguing and barking back with the umpires. Like, I get people like that for entertainment. As a purist myself, I thought, perfect. Just like tennis. No need for any more discourse. This is the right call. Here's a challenge. Boom, done. How'd you think about it? What did you think of it?
I completely agree. And it was quick. People thought that it was going to be a delay. It was no slower than the time in between a pitch clock in between pitches. Like you have, I think, 18 seconds or 15 seconds with nobody on in between pitches. It took no longer than 15 seconds to come to a conclusion on whether there was a strike or a ball. And the best part is it came on a strike 3 call. So you even got it in the best situation. You didn't get it in like the middle of the count where it didn't really matter. So I like that as well. I agree with the idea of adding a percentage buffer zone to a strike zone because I don't necessarily think that the traditional strike zone should just be, the automatic, yep, that's a ball or strike, because that's not how MLB umpires called it. And I think it would help the transition for MLB players moving to an automated system if you allowed a buffer zone. So I do think that you should get like an inch across the entire zone just as a buffer. But no, I love it. And I think you and I both sit in the same camp of eventually, I don't think we need the umpires at all. I don't like moving to an ABS system with a two challenge system in a game is fine, but I agree. I think it should just move to the way tennis does it, which is every single call that you can make correctly, we will make correctly. I don't know why that's such a controversial topic, and I'm an umpire. I've been an umpire since I was 12 years old. I've been an umpire for over a decade, and I completely agree. My job should be eliminated if we can eliminate it.
One Blue Jays related topic with the ABS, and we'll move on because obviously we have a lot to cover, but can't you just imagine that you have a game and it's like a big spot and Vladdy's up at the plate and he gets a pitch that he swears was completely off the zone and he challenges it, and then yep, it's a strike, and everyone's upset. I can just imagine Jay's Twitter, our group chat, Instagram, everything just like
Yep.
absolutely reaming off Vlad because there's no one that thinks he's correct more than Vlad and then not actually being correct on the
Yep.
replay. That's kind of the first thing that popped to my mind. I was a little worried about that. The last thing before we move on, the swing off, which obviously, this is the first time we saw it. I didn't know it really was a thing.
Yeah.
Obviously when Stephen Kwan
It's
hit
the
that
first time it's
dribbler and
ever
tied the
happened.
game.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
first time
yeah,
it's ever
right.
happened.
First thing I did was hop on the chat GPT. Hey, like chat, are we playing extras in the All Star game? Nope, we have a swing off apparently. So that was pretty cool. And honestly, I thought it worked fun. It was cool. I mean, obviously Kyle Schwarber was clutch hitting those 3 home runs and winning the MVP. Even though it's weird because I'm pretty sure there was the announcer said that you can't win the MVP because of the swing off, but
Yeah,
yet he didn't have a hit in the game and he got the MVP. So clearly,
they changed the
someone must have
rules.
missed the mark there.
No,
Uh,
they changed the rules on the fly. There was an
they changed rules
article
on the spot. Okay,
on the spot in 2022 when the rules came out. It was supposed to be the game ends in a tie. There's no winning or losing pitcher, but there's a little asterisk of saying like, but the NL won in a swing off, like just like it is in the
right,
NHL
right.
in an NHL shootout. Regular season game. That's exactly what was supposed to happen. The MVP was decided before the extra inning came into play, but then what was funny is that article that released all these rules was updated yesterday, or like literally during the game when it happened, because they changed the rules on the fly. So
Interesting.
now there's no
Very
actual
interesting.
documentation of the rules being what they were, but there was.
Interesting. Very cool. Very cool to know. Last thing, the swing off part. I heard some rumblings, and we don't have to spend too much time on this because I think we're going to agree about it possibly being the thing now in the
Right.
regular season, deciding. And I was completely against it. Honestly, bro, at first I was sort of one of the people that was hesitant with the Manfred man, the runner on second. I end up loving it now. I think that was the right call, especially considering
Yeah.
that at first I thought it was a big advantage for the home team because it's like football where you flip a coin and whoever gets the ball second has the advantage because you know who has the ball, you know how many points you have to score, all that. That's not been the case. Like the results suggest that it's
Correct.
pretty even, so no clear advantage. So completely cool with it. You don't burn the bullpen. I think that might be a little bit too rich for my blood, and I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that maybe if we had it in extreme circumstance, like because the whole reason why we brought in the Ghost
Like a
Runner was
15th
so
inning
that
type of thing.
right, like
Yeah.
even if you wanted to make it the 13th inning, I'd be okay with it being the 13th inning, but it's got to be one hitter.
Yeah.
It's got to be treated like a shootout, almost even a steroid shootout, which is you have one hitter, 3 swings each team. That didn't work. You have another hitter. It's sudden death right away. You don't go 3 rounds like they did in the MLB All Star game. I agree. I think that John Boy had a good take on it. He said it's the shootout version for Major League Baseball. It works for casual fans. It doesn't work for the hardcore fans.
Right. Yeah.
He
I'm with
doesn't
it.
really
I'm with it.
he doesn't really care if they were to bring it in. But as a hardcore fan, he said I wouldn't enjoy it, but I would understand why they did it. And
Cool.
I kind of sit in the same camp. Okay,
Good.
I think we've given the flowers enough to the MLB All Star Week, but it is the best, so it deserved all 13 minutes we gave it. Also, Vladdy and Al Kirk got a hit, so that's the other thing
Yep.
too. Good for them.
Cool. Cool stuff.
Our 2 All Stars. Okay, the trade deadline. We already did an episode on it, so if you've missed that, that is going to be a bigger, in-depth conversation and into our thoughts on the deadline and how the Jays approach it and all that great stuff. But Rob and I will again touch on it today. And I think the first question I wanted to bring up is Eugenio Suárez. So, since he's going to be the most coveted bat at the deadline, it's obviously going to be the highest price tag for a bat. Ross Atkins literally came out and verbally said, this one I know for a fact, that he wanted a right-handed bat. Obviously, Suárez is a right-handed bat. Our most available position for time is third base. So it would work out nicely if the Jays could get him. But the problem that we all foresee is that everybody wants Suárez, especially the New York Yankees. And that is an issue. When you're in a division race for the second half of the year with your closest rival in the New York Yankees, and they need the exact same thing that you need in your lineup, now you might have to make that choice. Now you might have to bite that bullet and go, yeah, we are going to make an aggressive offer for Suárez for 2 reasons. 1, he does help us the best, but 2, it also doesn't give him to a rival. It eliminates them from getting him. So before that, I didn't really factor in that possibility before today, which is why I'm bringing it up when we didn't bring it up last pod. I think the Jays need to go get Eugenio Suárez, and I'm okay if it costs a lot.
I'll pitch an analogy and I'll try to make it make sense. But
Okay.
we all agreed that the Blue Jays' biggest need is a starting pitcher, a top of the line starting pitcher, and we all also agreed that getting one's going to be very tough, right?
Yep.
Getting
Correct.
one's going to be very tough, and that you're probably gonna have to allocate some really significant prospect capital. Probably have to take on some money as well, and even then, like the odds of the team selling and then you're not going to get outbid. You're going to put together a competitive offer with a farm system that has gotten better, but still not quite the cream of the crop. Here's the analogy: is that let's say you really need a new couch. You really need a new couch, and you have $120, right? You have $120. The couch costs $100.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, this guy across the block, my rival, he wants this new mic that costs $50. Do I spend the $50 and outbid him and then not have enough left for the couch I really need? Or do I just play it prudent? Here, have your mic, have your nice shiny toy. I'll get what I really need, and that's the couch. And obviously, you can probably piece together. The starting pitcher is the couch that you really need, and then the mic is the luxury, the Eugenio Suárez of it all. That's the way I look at it. I think to me, I understand what you're saying. Negating a rival from getting an impact player is arguably, I mean, obviously you're getting him your own, so you can double it up, and that adds value, and that's why that would be interesting. And I'm sure the Blue Jays are going to call about Eugenio Suárez, but to me, I still really do believe that if this team is going to take a leap, they're going to need a top of the line pitcher. And if you get Eugenio Suárez, I'm not sure if there's going to be anything left in the tank to go out and get that guy. Now, obviously, if you survey the market and find that that deal doesn't exist and you want to move to Plan B, yeah, I'm for getting an impact bat. I do think that there is room in this lineup for a legitimate masher who plays a position of need and who is a right-handed hitter. So I like it. I'm not necessarily as convicted as you are that you have to get Eugenio Suárez. I'd still rather have the starter, but yeah, I understand your linear thinking that if that's the best you can get, if that's the best player for the best value, go for it, right?
Yep.
I mean, we all want Joe Ryan, but Joe Ryan might not be available, right?
Right.
And then I'd rather have Eugenio Suárez and impact bat than go out and give up assets for a Mitch Keller or a Luis Severino, for example, right? If that's the best you can get. So
Right.
I agree, but I sort of don't, if that makes sense.
That's okay. I'll make it even easier for you. What if the Jays got Zach Gallen and Eugenio Suárez?
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
And-
I think
but-
Zach Gallen's
but that-
in
but
that tier.
But yeah, Zach Gallen is the best pitcher you acquire at the deadline.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
What, like if I surveyed the market for Evaldi and DeGrom and Joe Ryan and I can't get any of those guys for the price and then I have to fall back to Zach Allen, is that the scenario we're in? Or do I still have the option to go out and pursue those guys?
Yeah, so here's
If I
your
still have the
option.
option to go out and pursue,
Here's your
I'm
option.
taking
You
it
can
out.
get Nathan Evaldi,
yes.
but it's going to cost you the same that it's going to cost you to get Zach Gallen and Eugenio Suárez.
I honestly, man, I'd probably go out and get Evaldi at that point. Probably
Really?
go out and get Evaldi, yes, because I really do think that this team needs front of the line starting pitching. Here's the reality, man. Even if you win the AL East and get that bye, the ALDS, you're gonna play the Red Sox. You have to win 2 out of 5 against them. 2 of the games are gonna be started by Garrett Crochet. Yankees, same thing. 2 of the 5 are Max Fried, and you have a bunch of 3s and 4s. And don't get me wrong, 3s and 4s, they have a lot of value in the regular season. Look at the Jays' record this season when Bowden Francis and Easton Lucas aren't pitching. When it's the 5 guys that are here right now, they have a great record. But that's the thing. In the playoffs, you're not facing, mid, bad teams, questionable teams that are not on the right, they're not going right now, like the way the Red Sox were looking early in the year when we played them. Now look at them now. It's you have to beat the best competition. And obviously right now, our starting pitching, in my opinion, is not enough to match up with those guys. You win that series, you're going to the ALCS. In that series, you have to win 4-7 against Detroit. 2 of the games are going to be started by Tarek Subel. It'll probably come out in the bullpen later on, too. You have to be able to match up, and I think, to me, that's why they really need a starter. I think the offensive side of the ball, you can kind of prey on the internal improvement. You can kind of prey on Vlad being a lot better. You can kind of prey on Dalton Varsho coming back and continuing to hit the ball like he was before he got injured in terms of the power. Anthony Santander, you're hoping that early start was a culmination of things, that he's a much better player. I think that you can sort of roll the dice on internal improvement, but you can't do that with your pitching. I think that you legitimately need external ads to go out there and raise your ceiling. That's where I stand.
That's interesting because Zach Gallen, as of even last year, was exactly the starting pitcher caliber that we're looking for this year. He also led that team to a World Series. He also a World Series appearance. He also
2 years ago. That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. He also he's also gotten better as the season has uh, gone on this year. So while his raw numbers and even his underlying numbers don't look great, if you were to go month by month, Zach Gallen's been better recently. So I think, with what the Jays in previous years, specifically this pitching staff, has done in recent years, where they acquire guys that don't have, a high ceiling, and they manage to turn them for the second half of the year into legit front of the line guys, whether it be a Taijuan Walker, whether it be a Jose Barrios, or whoever else you'd like to pick in terms of trade deadline acquisitions that the Jays have made over the years. It works. And Zach Gallen, I think, is one of the most talented acquisitions that we would have acquired during this iteration of the Blue Jays. Right up there, I think, with Jose Barrios. Obviously not this year. Like, the two aren't comparable when you're just isolating Zach Gallen's year this year. But in terms of talent, I think they're the same caliber of pitcher, and that's why I think I would much rather a package that includes Eugenio Suárez and Zach Gallen over ending the deadline with Nathan Eovaldi. And the only reason is because you need both is the answer. In the postseason, you need both. And we don't currently have guys that I know that we can rely on in October to do the offensive part of what you need in October, which is you got to hit bombs. Vladdy in the postseason, albeit in 6 games or whatever it is, has not been good. And that's obviously a big reason why we've went 0-6 in those playoff games. But my point is like, as great as George Springer has been, as great as Dalton Varsho has been in center field in the odd, runs into the odd ball here and there, I can't rely on any of our hitters to be power hitters in October. And I'm not saying Eugenio Suárez is necessarily a guaranteed bet either, but I want as much of that possibility as I can get. So if I can get a guy who I think could start game 1 of the postseason, and a guy who I know is going to be an everyday third baseman for us, and he has the possibility of hitting, 8 home runs in a postseason run, then I'll take that over the guy I know can start game 1 today. That's my point.
Here's, and this is obviously this will lead into a sundry conversation that we're going to avoid because it's such a massive conversation. But you saying that you're not sure if you trust any guy that you're a power hitter, and to me, yeah, that's your opinion. That's great, but ultimately, Ross Atkins can't say that. Ross Atkins and the Blue Jays can't go up there and say that we don't trust guy because you paid a guy like you do trust him. You paid a guy like you absolutely trust him more than just about anyone in the game, right? So I think that while that makes logical sense, you can't afford to use that in an excuse. I think you're much better off just if Vlad disappoints again, being like, well, we thought he was a $500 million player. Screw us for believing in our guy. You know what I mean? I think that's the better thing than to go out there and be like, yeah, we don't trust this guy that we gave $500 million to. We don't trust them.
They don't need
to go out there and get other guys.
Yeah, but the best thing is that they wouldn't need to do. They wouldn't need to provide an explanation to why we got Eugenio Suárez and Zach Gallen over why we didn't get Nathan Eovaldi. That wouldn't have to happen.
So here's the thing that you mentioned, and that the whole you can get a guy who has had upside and you can turn him into a better version of himself. And you're right, Zach Gallen was good recently, but the underlying numbers are awful. The underlying numbers they match how bad of a season he's actually had. And that's what concerns me the most, is because me really think that they need a top of the line starter. I want more of a guarantee than the guy who has not been good, and also the profile hasn't been good either. To me, that looks like legitimate concerns. And you're right that the Blue Jays have been able to extract the best out of guys. Pete Walker has done that, but also the thing is that it's not really been that year. It's been after a full spring training. Robbie Ray got traded here in the 2020 deadline.
No, that's not true. That's not true. If you go ahead and if you go back and check Taijuan Walker's stats to finish the year, it got him the contract he got in the offseason. If you go back and take a look at Jose Barrios' starts to end that second half, it got him the contract that the Jays eventually gave him.
So 2 things. The Taijuan Walker of it all. Taijuan Walker didn't pitch in the playoffs for the Blue Jays that year. They didn't trust him. His stuff didn't profile as a top rotation guy.
We had better guys. We had better guys.
He was never a top of the line pitcher. He was a good filler, a good depth guy.
Right. No, I understand that.
Never a top of the line starter. Jose Barrios is not a good example. Jose Barrios, they went out and gave up legitimate assets to get. They went out and gave up their top prospect in the system at that point. That is not a buy low option on the guy and hopefully you revive his career. You are paying for an ace. You are paying for a certainty at that moment. Like that is not a good example for a buy low. I'm sorry. And I think that's
No,
the
but
Barrio trade is what they have to recreate. A guy who's top of the pitching market, ironically, also a guy from Minnesota
yeah,
who was a top line pitching market, just like it is this year. And you go out and you pay top dollar for him. And look, Jose Barrios, I think that he hasn't quite been the ace that we were all hoping he would be, but he's been obviously a very solid pitcher. And right now he'd be your game one starter, which that kind of scares me a bit. But I think that you have to recreate that kind of trade. I think that it's not a buy low deadline. I think that they really need a top line pitcher. I think that that's why you can't mess around. Zach Allen's good. I love the idea of Zach Allen if this was the other 4 years. If this was all the other 4 years that you were contending, 2020 to 23, because in all 4 of those years, one thing that you had all those years was a guy who was a Cy Young candidate. Hyunjin Ryu, Robbie Ray, Kevin Gausman, Alec Manoah. You don't have that this year. You don't have a guy that, you know what, we don't have our number one. We have our number one. We can go for a depth guy. We can go for a Taiwan Walker. We can go for a Ross Stripling. We can go for who's another guy that they picked up. Who's another guy? They pick up another starter along the lines. I didn't even remember, but
no, yeah, Jose Barrios, yeah.
Mitch White, yeah, like the depth guys of it all. You know what I mean? Like Zach Allen would be a great buy low option if you have an ace. But to me, getting Zach Allen to be your ace is a dangerous proposition. And I understand that, you know, if he's back to 2023, Zach Allen, that's great. That would be a huge win. The underlying numbers suggest that that's not going to be the case. The underlying numbers suggest that he's been every bit as disappointing as his numbers would suggest.
I know.
To me, that's why I'm fearful.
Yeah, and I get it. I just think that the combination of Suarez and Gallen equals actually is a higher impact than the acquisition of a front of the line starter. Like, great, you'll give us 2 runs, 2-run ball in game 1. But I don't know if we're gonna get 2 runs on the other side of the ball. Which I know you're saying the front office can't say that. But they won't have to if you do one of those packages. They won't have to. You don't have to explain anything if you fill one of your holes. You know what I mean? That you don't have to explain anything. So, and the other point with the Walkers and the Barrioses, I agree. They were acquired with significantly different intentions. I understand that. Yep. But if you look at their careers that year and post, the best portion of those careers happened in the second half of the year they came to the Blue Jays. That's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not just that what we wanted to get them for, it's what did they do in the time of the second half. And they were at their peak. Like, I don't know if Jose Barrios has ever looked as good as he did in the second half of that year. I don't know if Taiwan Walker has ever looked as good as he did in the second half of that year. And that's my point, is if he can do that with Zach Gallen, if he can even do half of that with Zach Allen, then Zach Allen will be back to a point where we can trust him in a game 1 start. Maybe just slightly better than Jose Barrios. I can see that picture. Like, I can see him being a slight better option than Jose Barrios in game 1, and we obviously don't want that. But if I can get that plus a guy that's going to put up 35 home runs this year, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it for sure.
For me, I'm of the mindset that you have to, if you've made a decision, and obviously, like, I hate to make this about Vlad, but if you made the decision to go out and pay legitimate asset, like not assets, but like pay money for like Bats, Vlad, Santander, and obviously Springer.
And you're still acquiring
and by doing so, you're punting the ability to go out and get like what I think is a bigger need because you don't trust those guys. Like, to me, like that's this message it would send, and to me, that doesn't sit right with me because
that's fair.
Specifically with me because I was one of the guys that are like, like maybe we should wait for Vlad. Like,
right.
And this is so off topic, but like I just remember like the Jim Bowden tweet today. He was one of the guys that came on Blair and Barker at the beginning of the year, and he said the guarantee, the G word, the word that always gets me because that is you are leaving no room for error. He said, I guarantee you that the Vlad price would go up after this season, no matter what happens. Like, no, you didn't say no matter what happens, but like he guarantees that the price would go up. And right now you're looking at like I can't imagine anyone giving Vlad $500 million based on this season that he's having right now. Like, to me, the way that you just throw out guaranteed, like that's crazy for Joe Bowden's front. But whatever. Anyways, Prof, I did want to ask you about maybe some like a tiers of guys you would go after the starting pitching. Because I separated my starting pitching into 2 tiers, like the 2 tiers of guys that I would like, right?
Okay.
Number 1, I would go with the A+ tier. This is legitimately an ace. You got a guy who's going to start game 1 of the postseason. He's going to be your game 1 starter next year. And right now I have Nathan Eovaldi, like we mentioned.
Is there, I'm asking. It's only 3 people, isn't it?
I have 5. I went a little
Okay.
bit
Wow.
deeper. I went a
Okay.
little bit deeper. And 2 guys that we've talked about before, but obviously you have the 2 Texas guys. You have Evaldi
Yep.
and DeGrom. You have Joe Ryan. Joe
Yep.
Ryan, by the way, because of his age, he's the one guy that I would trade Arjun Namal for. He's the
Yep.
one guy that I would consider trading and like having a negotiation back and forth. It's 2 other guys. I talked about Freddie Peralta before. Obviously, the Brewers are contending. They have the same record we have, but
Right.
however, that franchise doesn't like to spend. So obviously, they're gonna have to pay Freddie Peralta a buttload of money this offseason, and we know they're not gonna want to do that. So might as well get some prospects in the meantime. That's a very big maybe because the logical thing is that they hold on and that's it.
Right.
And obviously Edward Cabrera as well with Miami, another offseason, another team that's very adverse to spending. So maybe they will be willing to discuss that. And then that's my tier 1. That's my tier 1 of guys, really good pitchers, all profile as aces going forward. Cabrera a little bit less. His stuff is not quite as good as the first 4, but ultimately
Yeah.
he's a young guy. Like during his ARB years, I think you could sort of mold him into being a legitimate guy. Now I have tier 2. And these are guys that this is a good offseason acquisition. Pardon me, good deadline acquisition. They would start a postseason game for you. They might not have control after next year. So, as you mentioned, like the second tier of guys, not quite as attractive as the first tier, but maybe more attainable.
Yeah.
I got Seth Lugo,
Yeah.
free agent after this year. Doesn't have the greatest stuff, but he's having a great year. He'd be your number 1 starter. He'd start game 1 of the postseason for you. Merrill Kelly and Zach Allen, 2 guys we talked about. Obviously guys from Arizona. Zach Allen, he's a guy who was an ace not that long ago, and now he has really rough peripherals. Whereas Merrill
Yeah.
Kelly
Kelly, the
doesn't
opposite.
profile as
Yeah.
doesn't profile as an ace at all, but has been having a really good year. And yeah, you can get him pretty buy low. I have Sandy Alcantara after Zach Allen in that tier because here's the thing about Sandy is that just like Allen, his numbers are bad, his peripherals are bad, but his acquisition cost will probably be higher than Zach Allen.
Yep.
So obviously that's less attractive for me. And then I sort of have the Mitch Keller, Luis Severino, sort of the bottom barrel. Mitch Keller, I'm not that intrigued. I'll be honest with you. I think that he's
Yep.
very mid. I think that he's another guy that would fill in what we already have, another 3 and a 4. Luis Severino does have good stuff. We saw him on Friday pitch really well against the Blue Jays. The stuff looked good. What's interesting about him is that he has been awful in Sacramento, but very good everywhere else. So
Yep.
is it perhaps the minor league ballpark that's causing him to not be as good? I'm hoping it is.
Maybe. Yeah.
Another issue is that he's got a lot of money owed to him the next couple of years, and we all know Sacramento. We talked about risk averse and cost averse franchises. They are the bottom of the barrel in terms of cost averse with that owner. So if the Blue Jays are willing to take on even a bit of money, I think they should pretty much get him for free, like
Right.
close to nothing. So that's what makes him attractive. But obviously, not having a good year overall, and yeah, that doesn't profile as an ace really. The stuff is there, but ultimately he hasn't been healthy or an ace for a while now. So that's sort of how I would organize my trade deadline once. How would you counter that?
I think that is the perfect tier list. Regarding Luis Severino, I agree that he deserves to be at the bottom of that second tier because I also don't think it's realistic. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Athletics gave him the largest contract the Athletics have ever handed out, or this ownership had ever handed out.
I believe I heard about that as well
Yeah.
during the broadcast. That seems kind of crazy because it was like a 3 year 60 million or something like that. I think it was, which is like it's not that big, right?
Yeah.
That's a decent acquisition, but that's like a minimum acquisition for the Blue Jays every offseason.
Every offseason, yep, I agree. So
Yeah.
I think there's a zero chance they trade him because what are you doing? You just signed that guy this year. Like I feel like
also the attractiveness would be like we'll take off money off the books for you.
no, but I'm saying how does the ownership sign the guy to their largest contract and then trade him in their first deadline? Like that doesn't make any sense.
This is the same ownership that's forced this team to play in that ballpark for 3 years, right? Like let's not forget what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I guess, but it's because they're moving. Like
they're moving because they're not willing to pay the freight to stay in Oakland. That's why they're moving because no one's coming to the games because they're a terrible team. Which another aside, I do this a lot. I think that Fisher, the A's owner, gets a little too much heat because even when the A's were good, they didn't draw any attendance. Like even when they were a playoff team, like no one still showed up to that game. I get it was a terrible ballpark, but I think that people hate on him a little too much. But regardless, they don't like to spend at all. We saw it. We got Matt Chapman and Marcus Semien basically for free, and they were both impact players because they're not willing to pay guys. So maybe this could be another thing. Maybe this could be and Josh Donaldson. How could I forget the AL MVP, the last guy, our best player when we last won the AL East. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put it past the Athletics, not Oakland, not Sacramento,
Yeah.
not Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Just the Athletics.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Here's the other thing. Getting the top of the line bullpen guys, the Jays aren't going to do that. The Jays aren't going to get the A+ tier bullpen guy. So I think Jays fans should just relax and deal with it. They'll get maybe the A tier, tier 2 guy. In all likelihood, they get one of those guys because those guys tend to be slightly cheaper than everybody else that we've talked about so far. And I want to go back to your bigger point because I think this is where it's caused a lot of controversy on Blue Jays Twitter. It's like, do you or do you not trade Arjun Amala and Trey Savage at the deadline if you're going all in? Here's my answer. Trey Savage, I'm more understanding of keeping him and not trading him. That's a guy that can impact
you next year.
Right, he can impact. Yeah, exactly. Assuming he doesn't blow out his arm like Ricky Tiedemann did when he was on the verge of making the Blue Jays rotation, Trey Savage is going to be in the rotation eventually at some point, if not at the start of 2026. So that's why you don't trade him. Arjun Amala is 19 years old.
Yep.
He's not going to see your team. He's not Bryce Harper. He's not Juan Soto. He's not going to see your team for the next 3 years. That's almost a guarantee. Almost a guarantee. For the next 3 years, Arjun Amala is not playing on the big league roster. And he plays in a position that, assuming the Jays kind of stay within, the picture that they're currently in, where you don't have room for him. If Addison Barge is your starting third baseman, or if Ernie Clements is starting third baseman, if Bo Bichette or Andres Jimenez is your starting shortstop, and you can find somebody at second base, and Vladdy's your starting first baseman, obviously, then you don't really got room for Arjun Amala anyway. So of course you're going to trade Arjun Amala. That guy is, as much as I love the future prospect of Arjun Amala, especially as a Toronto Blue Jay, he's not a guarantee. He's the farthest thing from a guarantee, I think, in the minor league system. If you look at the top 100 prospects, in my opinion, he's one of the most unguaranteed guys in the top 100 because he is so young. So Arjun Amala is definitely on the table. I think the last podcast I was a bit more hesitant, but as I've spent some time to think about it, he's 100% on the table for the right package, and that would be a Joe Ryan. And honestly, I mean, Suarez and Gallen are rentals, so I guess you cannot include them in that deal. No. But I do think there's other deals that exist out there that are beyond Joe Ryan that DeGrom, maybe.
No, I'm not there.
I wouldn't.
19 trade 19 for 37. You can't trade 19 for 37. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. Especially 37, who has been great this year, but has been playing tag with the IL for the last half decade, right? Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah. Joe Ryan's the guy who's available, right? He's the guy who we all know is available. Minnesota's talking about we're not going to trade him. We all know why he's out there. We all know why they're taking calls. He's available. People can call and make an offer, and they probably won't accept it because it'll probably take a lot for them to trade Joe Ryan. But yeah, he's a guy who's definitely going to be a guy they're going to receive a lot of calls about.
Yeah. Anybody with control. Anybody with control, and I mean, which Jacob deGrom does have, but yeah, he's 37. But anybody with control that's not 35 years old is 100% on the table.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on Arjun Amala. The only point I don't agree with is the whole point of that there's no room for him because he's a shortstop. Everyone gets drafted as a center fielder, shortstop, starting pitcher until they have to move to a different position, right? So I'm not too married to that side of it. For sure. No one is untradeable. Even Trey Savage. I mean, obviously you'd want to keep him, but if there's a package out there that makes sense,
right? If it does cost you, if you get Joe Ryan and it ended up costing you Trey Savage, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, someone would say that Joe Ryan is obviously great, but maybe Trey Savage can be 80% as great for a lot less of the price for the next half decade. I understand that argument of it all, but the Arjun Amala front. I get the Arjun Amala front because I think you mentioned you're right. Maybe it's not 3 years, but it'll at least be 2. He's not impacting this year or next year, that's for sure. And after, if you're not talking about this year or next year, you're too far in the future. So many things can change that you should not be planning that far ahead. We saw it. We saw where the Blue Jays were 2 years ago. They had to basically tear the team down, give out another contract and basically start a new contention window almost around Vlad
Yep.
now. Vlad's now the player they're building around. So there's no point in like worrying that far into the future. Obviously, this is a great prospect who's got a ton of value and you want to make sure you move him for the right piece. I completely get that. But I mean, Joe Ryan, that's a guy who you can put and be your ace. Start game one of a playoff series. Start game one of next season.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that's attractive. That's not going to be talked about as much. But you don't have any young starting pitchers coming through the system needing an extension right away, right?
Right.
You don't have, guy. You have money coming off the books. You'll have plenty of money, plenty of flexibility to go out and extend Joe Ryan once you bring him in here.
Yeah,
so that to me, you have to factor that in as well. You have to factor that in as well. And obviously, it'll be a lot more expensive than Trey Savage pitching for almost nothing for the next half decade.
Right.
But if you can get both and give up Arjun Amala, I'm for that. But right now, out of all the guys that are available, I think Joe Ryan is the only guy that I would consider trading him for. Like I'm not there with Evaldi or DeGrom, and obviously nobody else. There's nobody else worth trading him for. So.
Yeah, I agree. And that was my point with Trey Savage whichever Savage and Joe Ryan. Not my money, and there's plenty of money coming off the books. So you can get a guaranteed Joe Ryan over a possible Joe Ryan. I'll take the guaranteed Joe Ryan even at the price of Joe Ryan. Happily.
But that's always the conversation. But the conversation really is, it's not about the guarantee versus the possible. It's that one guy's going to be willing to play for free. Not willing to, he's going to be playing for free almost for the next decade.
But yeah,
which matters.
Right, but not my money, and you have money coming off the book. So
okay, obviously, but then we get into the conversation of like if it was up to me, go out and get everybody, give everyone a 9-figure deal, and give me the best team ever as a fan. But like if we're gonna have like a strategic business conversation, that has to be factored in.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think it does. With money coming off the books, the Jays aren't tight for cash. They're going to spend that. They're going to spend that money, and they would have spent it on a Joe Ryan in the offseason if they didn't get Joe Ryan at the deadline.
That's fair.
Yeah,
and I think they have to factor that in.
Yeah.
Like here's the thing: you're going to need a top line starting pitcher. If you don't get one this deadline, you're going to have to get one in the offseason. Yeah. And look, Dylan Cease has had a rough year. Dylan Cease is obviously very good. He's still striking out a ton of guys. His stuff is still good, but that's the best guy you're going to get. Like I'd rather have Joe Ryan. I'd rather have Joe Ryan than giving Dylan Cease a bunch of money, right? So you have to factor that in as well. So I'm with you. He might not be available. We'll see. I think for the right price, he will be. But ultimately, if it's going to cost more than Arjun Amala, I can understand why the Blue Jays would be a little bit hesitant. And by the way, more than Arjun Amala, I mean like Arjun Amala, Trey Savage, and more pieces.
Right.
JoJo Parker, even though it's not possible, he's not actually signed yet. But if that costs you that too, then you'd have to obviously put a pause on it. But yeah, I'm for it. Be aggressive. Go out, and if Arjun Amala can be traded for the right piece, get it done.
Yeah. Final question.
Look at Austin Martin. Look at Austin Martin. He was in Arjun Amala's position, not far off 4 years ago. And look where he is now.
Yeah, for Jose Barrios, and he's not in the big leagues, sir. And if he is, he's not a guy that we talk about. Final question to finish things off today.
Yep.
And it has nothing to do with the trade deadline. AL MVP race. It seems to be a hot debate in Major League Baseball right now. Everybody seems to think that because Cal Raleigh leads the league in homers and he plays the catching position, that automatically makes him the most valuable player in the world. But we have metrics that decide that, and Aaron Judge is leading in every one of those metrics on whatever site you respect more, whether it be Fangraphs or Baseball Reference. So my MVP as of right now is still Aaron Judge, although obviously it's insane what Cal Raleigh's doing, and congrats to him. But just like Vladdy had to compete with the anomaly that was Shohei Ohtani in an MVP year, unfortunately, that's what Cal Raleigh has to deal with in Aaron Judge.
I could not agree more. And obviously, Cal Raleigh, congratulations, buddy. You've graduated from the Blue Jays killer tier. You kill everybody. You are a hell of a player. You're having a historically great offensive season for a catcher. But yeah, the numbers obviously, look, first and foremost, the numbers don't lie. We won't even talk about the numbers. The eye test doesn't lie either, because we watched Aaron Judge, man. We watch how you have basically 4 fingers every time he's at the plate. I'm not sure if you saw Adam. I'm not sure if you heard Adam Wainwright yesterday on First Things First, but he told Aaron Judge story and how Yachty comes up to him when he was pitching for the Cardinals, and Aaron Judge was at the plate, and that I think it was runners on first and third with nobody out, and obviously first base isn't open, but Adam Wainwright says, "Yeah, no, let's load the bases. I don't care if first base is not open. We're not pitching to Aaron Judge." And he tells the pitching coach that if you make me pitch to Aaron Judge, we're not winning this ball game. Like that, the fear that Aaron Judge puts into people. And we saw a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
John Schneider had been walking him every time.
Every
Four
time.
fingers, throw him up. And the one time he didn't, he made you pay.
Yep.
Like, that is just how insane Aaron Judge is. He's one of one. In the playoffs, a lot of guys are Aaron Judge, but in the regular season,
Nobody's Aaron Judge. Yeah.
He is one of one. And yes, as much as I hate the Yankees, he's the MVP.
Yeah.
Hands
awesome. Thanks, Rob. By all means, for everybody who watches this podcast or listens to this podcast, stay tuned because we might have a very special guest on in the very near future, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. And that'll be it from Rob Pentalman. I'm Cole Whiston. You're watching the Sick Podcast Network and the Blue Jays Center Podcast. Thank you for watching. Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.